they don't want to fight with their family about this. They don't want to take work off, right? Someone that's like logical about it and says, well, I could take work off just to suffer through a move, or I could just pay these guys and I could go to work and make the money the way I know how. Today on the Beyond Net Worth podcast, I was interviewed by my cousin, Bailey, and we've been working with him for a while, and he was just asking me a lot about the moving company, why we started it, the origin, where it's going now, what kind of things are important to me, and why we've stuck with it. It was good for me to answer some of these questions he asked, and I hope you enjoy it. This episode is brought to you by Big Storage Ventures. We are now inviting you to team up and partner alongside us. We bring our experience hunting storage deals and maximizing the self-storage asset to provide our partners with cash flow, tax benefits, and appreciation, all in one recession-resistant asset. Leverage our sister company, Big Ben's Moving Service, to fill your facility and give you an edge over the competition. Reach out to bigstorageventures@gmail.com or DM Big Storage Ventures on Instagram to team.
Well, first question, kind of a long one, but what led you to starting up your business?
What led me to starting the business was actually a necessity by my grandma. So, as a teenager, my grandma managed a rest home, and her job was she was the marketing director. So her job was to ensure that the customers, the old people, they were vulnerable, and she needed to ensure that they had a good moving experience into her assisted living facility, because that set the tone for the entire time they lived there. The move started it off, right? And what she found was the movers there were either kind of like local and shady, or they were like a big van line and they were really impersonal and had unnecessary fees and things like that. So that's kind of how I started, was just very small jobs focused on, one thing at a time, and it had to kind of be up to grandma's standards.
Yeah, definitely. So what would you say? What was the reason that took you to the next step of opening this up to the full market rather than just a side hustle that you serve grandma with?
Yeah, we got feedback pretty early on. We're just hardworking guys doing clean, honest work, learning as we go. And we got feedback from customers. We would move someone's mom or dad or parents into the rest home, and they would say, hey, like, are you guys willing to move us? And we have like a big house and we need help moving. And, people started to trust us. People started to pass our name around based off of our values and how we treated people and how we took care of their stuff. And it's not an easy business, but it's very simple to just do a great job for people. And that's what was missing in our market, was that excellence and that customer attention.
Awesome. So you mentioned like grandma's standards. So talk to me about that. Like, what was her approach with talking to you? Like, did she give you expectations, or is it just the way that she is? Like, tell me about her.
Well, grandma's standards, a lot of it went unsaid, right? Basically like, hey, like, this is my reputation on the line. My grandma was divorced. She was, fixed income. She had to take care of herself. She never got remarried. And so it was kind of like a pride thing. It was kind of like, hey, we don't even have to know when she says do a good job for these people. You just do it. You just make sure their stuff's protected. You ask them questions to make sure they're happy. If they want anything moved around a little bit, you do it, right? And so one of our things that sets us apart is that we're customer facing. And I feel like it's mainly because we've always just learned how to do moving that way, is just asking them what they want and trying to fit them versus having them fit us.
Awesome. What would you say, like, growing your business? It can be anything from day one challenges or just what you're facing now, but like the number one roadblock that you have faced with the moving?
Yeah, the number one roadblock with moving has been probably just making all the sacrifices necessary to set up a legit company, right? Because as I told you, it started as a side hustle, but now we're licensed and insured. We pay workers' comp, we pay for the DOT, we pay full insurance, all these things that, it's a huge sacrifice when you're going from something small to something big. But if you believe in it enough, you're gonna do it, right? We also pay our team more than the average mover, which you could think of as a sacrifice. But for me, I think of all these things more of an investment, right? Like you have to not think of them as sacrifices, but necessary investments to get the customers that top-notch level of excellence that they deserve.
Um, yeah, I think that's definitely accurate. Like a lot of people just kind of set things up as quick as they can. I would say that's like a pretty internal thing. So do you think you could speak to anything like external roadblock, like something in the market or in the city or like competition wise? Like what would that biggest roadblock be?
Ex- yeah, the that's a good question. Like our number one external opposition might be the fact that we just do business straight up, right? We don't do things how people are used to. A lot of movers, they do things the old way. They have an archaic system with an old bill of lading and all these complicated things. And oftentimes they do bait and switch models, right? And so one thing that's really hard about our competition is not all of them are trustworthy. Some of them are good, like they're not all bad, but a lot of times what happens is someone that people shouldn't be trusting gets on the phone with a customer and says, "Oh yeah, we can do this for X amount." And it gets the customer excited because that's such a low number. But then the job actually happens and they do a terrible job and they try to charge double or triple and it just goes south. And so for us, we have that dilemma of telling them the true price, which is not the highest in the market, but it's also not the lowest in the market. And we have to really help people see that there's no money wasted. Like everything goes to something. And, when someone tells you something that's too good to be true, it probably is. Just helping people see that and build that trust is one of our challenges, maybe.
Yeah, it sounds like just like selling them like on the value of your quality versus competition, just undercutting and making it as cheap as possible.
And honestly, we haven't had it's not too much of a problem because people are getting smarter. People know. No, people hear from friends, and those moving companies, they all die. So they come, they set up shop, they do a fly by night type job, and sometimes they stick around for a couple of years, but now we're starting to watch those guys go away. And I'm sure new guys will come up, but it's not something that's really crippled us or slowed us down at all. That's just one thing that came to mind. We've been honestly really fortunate with demand, and people have been so nice to continue to refer us.
Also, I think that leads really good into my next question. So, what would you say is your ideal or perfect client?
Yeah, our ideal client is someone who, right, recognizes the value that they're getting, right? Someone with the mindset of abundance that realizes they don't want to break their back. They don't want to fight with their family about this. They don't want to take work off, right? Someone that's like logical about it and says, well, I could take work off just to suffer through a move, or I could just pay these guys and I could go to work and make the money the way I know how. And that covers the move and then some, right? So I think our ideal client is someone in this new mindset that realizes that hiring movers and using storage, that's a way to buy back your time, right? So these type of people in the middle class, like we're starting to open up the eyes of the middle class to realize this is a business decision that is the best thing for you and your family. Your stuff's, if you're trying to move yourself, like, or your stuff's at risk, you could throw out your back. And people that have the vision and the wisdom to know this is a task that should be delegated, those are the real winners that we want to work with.
Awesome. So yeah, you answered my next question a little bit, but I want to go a little bit deeper and maybe talk about another version of that. So you kind of talked about risk of doing it yourself versus you doing it for them. So I kind of want to talk about the state of these people before they hire you versus after they hire you.
Yeah.
So what is the transition that you help them achieve?
We help people go in from that transition of their move being a nightmare to that move being one of the best days of their life, right? Moving on your own is up there with death and divorce as one of the most stressful things that could possibly happen to someone, right? So when you're talking about the transition we've helped people achieve, it's they said to themselves the last time they moved, we will never do that again. And so they're taking that leap of faith to bring in some professionals. And when you buy a new house, you should be smiling that whole day, right? And so we make that become a reality for people where we come in, we do a full service packing job, we do full service loading, transportation, we set up the beds, we hook things up, we make it ready to live in so that by the time we're done, they can enjoy their new home. And that's something that should be accessible for everybody.
Awesome. Yeah, that was perfectly said, dude. I got goosebumps on my arms. Didn't think about ever having to talk about moving. Yeah, that was perfect. Okay. I think a better way to ask this, like what you like you gave me chills when you're talking about that because you have like such confidence and surety in that. So like at what point along your journey did it like click for you? Like that's what you're really doing for people. Like you're not just picking up boxes and dropping them off. Like you're accomplishing this happiness. Like at what point did that click?
I think that has clicked over time. You know, you're asking about when did it click the true intrinsic reward of helping someone have a joyful move, right? That's something that not very many people can say that they've had, but that's why we create raving fans is I think it clicked when I realized we were creating what's called a customer surplus, meaning I would hear from people that was worth every penny. Some of these people have big homes and they have to pay, good money, a couple grand, right, to move their home locally. And for them to say to me, I think that this is so worth it. I would have paid way more than that. I had people, mostly people from California, tell me, son, your price is too low. Like, and when we first started, right? And so still, even though we've raised our prices, people are still saying worth every penny, would have paid double, would have paid more. And what that customer surplus does is it leaves you feeling like, man, like we do have something that we can hang our hat on, right? And that really clicks and sinks in. No one wants to be a mover when they're a little boy. They don't want to grow up and be a mover. But for me, like the strengths that we're able to demonstrate, now it's not just one crew. We have an army of people that share my values, and that's really what sets us apart.
Awesome. Okay. So I think this question like mostly applies to the before because it speaks for itself after they have the service. But if you're talking about somebody that's maybe window shopping or looking at tons of different options, getting quotes, like what do you think is the one thing that this person must believe in order to see the value before making that transition and going through the experience?
That's a great question. So, what do people have to believe to see the value in our service? And I think what people have to believe is that there's two things. One, they're comparing us to, our competition, right? And so they have to believe that what we bring to the table, what makes us unique, is more important than what makes someone else unique. And this kind of leads into other topics, but really what sets us apart is our world-class team, our people, right? And so you have to believe that the people moving you create more value than anything else someone else could do. Right? We do other cool things. We provide free totes and save people money on their supplies, and we go above and beyond in ways no one else does. But when you realize that the people on the front lines, the team that we've put together, those guys are better than anyone else, and they're going to give you the best bang for your buck. They're going to make your moving experience seamless, and they're extremely trustworthy. Moving is about trust. So it's not as much about what people believe about you. It's just, do they believe that they can trust you? They believe that you're going to do what you say you're going to do. And, we're some of the people that not only say what we're going to do, but we go and try to exceed expectations.
Awesome. Oh, great. Okay. Yeah. So you personally, like, why do you love doing what you do?
I love doing what I do because of all the people we've served so far that have said thank you, right? Like we've touched on in this conversation, this is a stressful time for people. You have a chance to be a little bit of a hero. When you do a good job, right? It's like sometimes people call, and to tell them, hey, I know this is stressful, but we're going to take that weight that's crushing you right now, and we're going to put that on our shoulders. Right? It's just so much joy, and it's so much easier for them, and it's so rewarding for us to come do that because we're uniquely qualified to come do that. So I feel like that is one of the main reasons I love doing what I do. Another reason I love doing what I do is I feel like this is more from the management side, right? I feel like moving requires three things: integrity, moving requires resilience, and excellence, right? So you have to be trustworthy with integrity. You have to do what you say you're going to do. It's stressful. So the resilience piece, you can't quit. Like, you're going to have hard days. You're going to work long hours. The team is going to get hot and cold, and trucks break down. But I feel like I'm uniquely qualified to do this because of our resilience. I'm committed for life. I'm not going anywhere, right? No matter how many times we get punched, we're going to get back up. We're going to get so much feedback and continue to train and do better and better on our processes. And that's where excellence comes in. And so I feel like a lot of people would have quit or taken shortcuts or, watered down their service. And we're not compromising on any of those things.
Yeah. Awesome. I think that's a huge point that you just made, that like a lot of business owners like either don't have or they just fail to express. I think if people could just realize the difference, that you are not going anywhere. Like, you are not in this to make the most amount of money possible. And if the money stops, like, you're out. Like, you want to build an empire. Like, you want to build the best name and brand. That's your long-term goal. So like your service needs to reflect that. And it definitely does. I think that's awesome. Yeah, you answered my last question already. So I think that's it. I think that's a good way to wrap. That's so many good bites and good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, just to touch on that last question, I already talked about the world-class crew that sets us apart. The other thing is, the customer-facing approach. And so because I never worked for another moving company, like you heard, I just started learning this when I was helping my grandma. I never learned all the bad habits, right? So I've had to pick up some of the good habits that movers, all the techniques and all the things like that. But I never picked up the bad habits that a lot of movers have. Like, I got to instill my own values and my own processes and procedures, and I got to take out things that don't make sense. And so I feel like that can't be understated either, because having a customer facing approach and doing things that make sense to the customer, it's so simple, but it's really what we're doing here that makes us special on top of our people.